morning, everyone. TGIF and all that. Welcome to our Friday morning trading session. So the market's just opened, and we're looking at the NASDAQ here. And it looks like there was a fairly significant move lower. A lot of choppiness in the overnight, you can see. But the market left off up here around 43.01, 4,300. And then through the overnight, it kept retesting that 4,300 area and eventually worked its way a little bit lower. Here we go. So now on the open, we're looking at about a 20-point gap just above the market. I know it wasn't quite as clear on the Raptor as I hoped. I hoped it would be a little bit more evident, but it wasn't. Here, let's take a look at the Eagle. The Eagle will probably show it a little better. There we go. So we have this little bit of a downward slide through the overnight session as the sellers start to beat up on the buyers. As most times when we have an opening gap, it's always interesting to try to second guess whether the market's going to get into that gap or whether it's going to fade the gap. In other words, is that overnight momentum going to spill over into the morning session, or are traders going to try to get in there and cover it? We did get a very early cloud crossover signal here on the Raptor, and we already have a trend change signal here on the Falcon. I suppose I could have taken the Falcon one. The Falcon, I could probably have gotten in with a onesie. Oh, even there, 2 contracts. And we would have just hit the high probability profit target. But it's very early. We're barely a minute or two into the session. Crude oil is also trading a little bit lower. They fell off a little bit through the night, sitting at around $44 a barrel at the moment. For June crude, and gold, I'll try to pay a little bit more attention to gold this morning. Here we go. We're getting a gold signal on the Falcon and the Hawk. We're getting a trend change signal. Let's see, can I cover this down below the low? No, I can't. What about if we tried it below this swing low? There we go. Now we're getting a second push on this signal as well. The downside to this trade is the big downtrend that we're in. So always be suspicious when you're getting a trend change signal against a dominant trend. Whenever there's an obvious trend, it's very likely that the market might be producing nothing more than a bear flag. A little bit of a retracement, and the market may try to resume that initial trend. To avoid getting in on the wrong side of a trade against a trending market like this, try to incorporate the second push on the entry. It will keep you out of trouble a lot of times, especially if the market is trying to change trend or if you suspect that your signal may be coming counter trend. And then, of course, if your account allows, you can always dial down your risk amount as well. So we'll just let that one alone for a moment. If we get another red bar there, I'm going to cancel that order. On the hawk I mentioned with gold, we're also getting a first micro-macro cross. Well, actually, we're got two in a row. This was a first micro-macro cross, which gave you a little bit of heat, but everything went out of sync again, even though the micro and macro lines did not cross over. We are producing another first micro-macro cross signal, and that one would have been signaled right here on this particular bar. And now we're producing another signal. It's pretty much in line with the first micro-macro cross and may even be drifting into a macro pullback. You could try to follow this down if you really think that gold's trying to get higher. As I mentioned though, this is definitely counter trend. So this is what I would consider a higher risk trade. And especially if gold gets down here. Okay, now we've got a macro pullback. If the buyers are going to recover the trend, they're going to try to do it from down here. If they fail to recover the trend from here, then it's probably going to resume the downtrend. So the macro pullback just giving us a little bit of a tap on the entry. I think they might have even slipped us a tick. And now we're into yellow bars. So here I'm going to show you the whole counter trend problem. See here, this is the eagle. We're producing a green bar sell right off of the hard edge. So we've got a couple of our tools looking a little bit more bearish, a couple looking a little bit more bullish. Okay, red bar buy. This is really the last chance for the buyers now. Oh, good morning, Derek. Nice to see you in the room this morning. Derek says he only trades gold during the European session or the Asian session from 1700 to 0600 daily, Arizona time. So that's central. I guess you're on the same time zone as I am now. Or wait a minute, how does that work? I don't think in Arizona you guys do daylight savings time. Derek's point is that the overnight is more fun. It looks like there was some pretty decent follow-throughs here in the wee hours. Mo is asking, Eric, are you using a 4 or 6 tick on gold? Right now I have the alternate settings on gold, so that's why you may or may not have gotten a signal. Nothing wrong with using the default settings on gold. In fact, once I get tagged on this trade, what I'm going to do is I'll put soybeans or one of the other markets that are trading at 1250 a tick, or 10 or 1250 a tick on here. Come on, get up there. So now we're getting that first micro macro cross lower. You can see the green bar sell, and here again on the eagle, it's much more evident, that whole bear flag pattern. But a good example of why it's better to avoid some of these counter trend signals than to just start grabbing signals left and right. All right, so we knew that the buyers were going to show up somewhere down here. It doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to take control of the market again, but certainly time to start rolling stops. If this first micro macro cross actually trips, I just want to make sure I'm below there. There we go. If this first micro macro cross actually signals, well, they're going to tag me out. If we drift a little bit higher here to the macro line, I'll have a chance to tighten my stops a little bit, lessen the sting if in fact the market is reversing. But right now, maybe after that downtrend, the best that the buyers can do is push the market into a sideways trading range. Oh, darn. While all that was going on, we got our cloud crossover here on the Raptor. We got our signal. Great follow through this morning. Looks like the buyers have the market in hand. Oh, darn it. There was the move of the day right there. And we got signals, it looks like, across the board. First micro macro cross. Took off like a rocket. Here was the trend change signal in the Falcon. Also coincided with a late filter entry signal. We got another trend line touch signal. Or you could also consider this your trend change signal, given that this signal tripped right about the opening minute or two. But regardless, no problem there. And we've got a rule of three signal here in the Eagle. Might as well go over the rule of three. You might even consider this a rule of five. The rule of three signal happens on your Eagle. Sometimes you'll see a similar signal developing on the Raptor, and that's okay because, of course, the Raptor incorporates elements of the Eagle. So it's only natural that you may see this kind of thing happening as well. The rule of three signal occurs when you have a trend and then the market starts signaling against the trend. So we have a bearish trend line and we start producing these buy signals. We're going to concentrate on these signals over here. We're going to ignore these guys here for a moment because they don't really matter. Now the rule of three does not have to develop exactly like this where you go boom, 1, 2, 3, and then the market rallies. But the rule of three must always, always, always be preceded by a test or a retest of the lows and a failure. Now that failure tends to come on the third or just before the third signal. That's why it's called the rule of three. Occasionally the failure will occur before the second signal, and that's okay. Sometimes the failure will not occur until the third or fourth counter trend signal, and that's okay too. We're looking for the signal not because it signals 3 times against the hard edge, but because it has the right structure. It has the right type of formation where it retests the low, that's very important, and then fails. Or it and it starts printing against the hard edge. That's what makes this a rule of three signal. And it's pretty easy to find. I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but when you go, well, I know I'm not boring you, sorry, wrong choice of words. But if you roll back into your chart, see if you can't identify it on your own. That's very important. Now you're going to encounter periods like this on the Eagle where the band just keeps waffling back and forth, back and forth. Obviously, this is not a trending period, right? So you're not going to get a rule of three. A rule of three always occurs after a trend. Or I should say, if it occurs at the end of a trend. You see, here the trend changed from up to down, but no rule of three signal. We did get one counter trend. Well, the band was already changing over. I suppose we could say it's a rule of three in a manner of speaking, but the cloud was already flipping over. Things were already beginning to look more bearish at this point. Even if the trend coming down is very wavy, very choppy, that's okay so long as it resembles a trend. And then you're looking for one, two, I guess it would be, okay, here's a good example. This is actually a rule of two. We don't have three signals counter trend, but what do we have? And you'd have to be paying attention for this one. We've had our retest, and then the market starts to head the other way. Now, because the rule of three is a counter trend signal, you can treat it like our other counter trend signals, and you can wait for the market to confirm that the trend is changing, or you can wait for a with trend signal. Personally, I don't mind taking the rule of three. If I'm hesitant, I'll wait for a with trend signal, in which case I could have got long right here. I certainly would have entertained getting long above this high. And you can see we got yet another with trend signal there as the market retreated into the hard edge and bounced out. On the Raptor, this would have been your cloud crossover signal. Here's a trend change, or an attempt at a trend change, but no rule of three signal. So it's a very easy exercise to do, and it's well worth your while to go into your chart and find where the market turns and see if you can't spot a rule of three. 1, 2, 3. And then look and make sure it had a test of the extreme, a retest of the low, or pardon me, the high. See, now this one actually triggered 3 times, but I would already be getting serious about shorting off of the second signal, especially when it broke that low. Why? Well, we've had something that resembles a test of the extreme. In anticipation of yet another signal against the hard edge, I would have to run my stop as deep as I could, because sometimes this third attempt could get rather aggressive before it actually fails once more and starts heading lower. So you don't want to keep your stop, necessarily right here unless you can't afford any better, in which case you're just going to hope for the best and take your chances, or you dial up your risk a little bit more and try to take it above the swing high if at all possible, or you just flat out ignore the trade and wait for your with trend signal, which you would have gotten right about here. All right, so those are your options, but it's well worth your while to just dial back into the history of your chart and see if you can't identify it. That way, when the rule of three actually starts to unfold, you can be better prepared for it. Okay, so the market got into that opening range gap. Now the sellers are trying to fight it back one more time. Yeah, Salish says the London session is smoother than the U.S. session. Plus, London is the center for the gold market. The Europeans, I don't know if they have fewer doctors and lawyers trying to play the markets between between clients, but very often they do seem to have a smoother progression. That's true. Yeah, no HFTs, Derek says. No high frequency traders. That could be. Um, Good morning, Jim. Jim says our advanced decline this morning is just about dead even. Oh, started dead even, and now we've got 1350 on the buy and 1300 on the sell. So the market, at least according to the advanced decline, fairly neutral. So the buyer's stalling at 1310. Gee, why does that number sound familiar? Remember yesterday I told you, pay attention to 1310. It's going to be an influential number. The market spent a lot of time struggling with 1310 yesterday. Oh, nicely done, Jim. Jim says 2 trades. He's up 120 ticks. The YM had a nice hard edge bounce. Let's take a look at what Jim was taking a look at here. So here's the YM on the Raptor. I suspect that you got in here off this cloud crossover somewhere, perhaps even a little bit earlier, one of these signals through here, but you're absolutely right. Nice move into the hard edge, great rejection, and the market just peeled off higher from there. Nicely done. Now we would be anticipating another hard edge bounce of sorts, a retest of the high. If we get the failure from there, well then we're fairly certain that the price should head lower once more. Yeah, like Derek says, no high frequency trading in Europe is good for those of us who want to do high frequency trading from North America. All right, so let's see if we can't get a decent signal. I've spent a little bit too much time yakking this morning. Gold starting to pick up again, so it's just a matter in that case of keeping your stop out of harm's way. Sometimes, that's the key to successful trading is just hanging in there long enough to realize a profit. All right, so our Hawk and Falcon already bearish. Our Eagle struggling here on the hard edge, as is the Raptor. And we would be, I bet you anything, if we shoot a trend line. Look at that. So we could anticipate one more, at least one more push higher. We've already got the red bar buy signal. We were against the ATR. We're going to produce another red bar buy. And I think we're going to get at least one more press higher. I might choose to take this one on the hash mark, even if it's against the ATR. Try to risk it a little bit deeper. We're a little bit late to this party, though. That's what bothers me. or I'm a little late to the party. And not fashionably late. Okay, so the Raptor, the Eagle, the Falcon, they're all starting to flatten out here a little bit. Getting a, I bet you that's probably pretty darn close to a 50% retracement. All the fib traders are getting really excited. Oh yeah, look at that, right on the money. All the fib traders are excited that the market got back to the 50% line, but they're wringing their hands because they don't know if it's going to go higher or lower. Yeah, Jim said crude oil took a nice little hop up here. I seem to be looking at the wrong markets today. The markets are moving while I'm looking at something else. Okay, so here's crude oil. Nice little trend change signal. This is now on the Falcon. We also had a first micro macro cross on the Hawk and something resembling a trend change signal on the Raptor and Eagle, but I'll just show you here on the Falcon. So we have our trend change. We have our trend line changing from red to green, and we get this nice little up, down, up pattern. There's our signal. And with crude, of course, I doubled the profit objective, but even so, it looks like we got a nice little move here. And now we are sitting back at the median line after bouncing off of the primary and secondary support levels. So actually some very good opportunities this morning to make some money, and probably would be done for the day. Okay, so the market's starting to break down again here on the NQ. Kind of snuck through the trend line there. That's not to say that we're not going to see a little bit of a reaction higher. Rather that we're starting to get to an area where the buyers are going to have to dig in if they're going to do anything. I suspect we're going to see a little bit of a uptick, and then the market will either enter a trading range, in which case we're just going to keep bouncing between this morning's highs and lows, or the buyers or the sellers will recover the market. At this moment, I'm going to, no, actually, I'm not going to commit. Both sides are capable, of course, of recovering the trend. the buyers were stronger in the overnight, the sellers were stronger in the overnight, but the buyers certainly stepped up and showed that they were alive and well. Oh, well done. Derek says he had his target today, his trading target, at 5:25 in the morning, Arizona time. Derek is very much a night owl. Yeah, it seems like you guys who used to work nights for a living have a hard time adjusting to a daytime schedule. I have a friend who used to work nights, and he's the same way. It's nothing to him to sit up all night or stay up all night. Derek says he worked 20 nights for 25 years, drives his wife crazy. Yeah, I bet it does. I bet it does. Okay, soybeans are a great market to look at as well, especially this time of the year when it's hitting growing season, and soybeans are usually pretty active. But the thing I've always liked about soybeans is that once the market picks a direction, it pretty much stays with it. This was yesterday's session in soybeans here on the Falcon, and you can see it was just an enormous session. So we had our trend change signal right here. Let me see if I can afford it up to the high. No, I can't. What if we did it, to the crest on the trend line? That we can do. And you can see if you ran a trailing stop, and given the way the market is bouncing around a little bit, even a 3 period wouldn't be enough. We'd have to maybe go to a chandelier or something. Or just look at re-entering, really. Yeah, even a chandelier won't hold you in. The market's a little bit too wavy, but it's not like we didn't get secondary signals. We got another trend change signal right here. And let's say you went with your chandelier stop. So hit your profit target. Let's say we just ran a stop just for giggles and grins. We would have been stopped out here. The point is, soybeans, often overlooked market, and yet I think it trades very well. So it looks like today soybeans a little bit more in an uptrend. So let me see if we can't. I don't normally do this. Actually, is my data even on? Oh yeah, there it is. Okay, so all I've done is I've thrown in a limit order to try to simulate this late filter entry signal. We'll see if we can't catch this one. The trend change signal occurred right here a few minutes after the open. But soybeans is one of these markets that will typically make $1,000 move in a day. And usually you want to use your alternate settings for soybeans. Derek says, fly out, we'll go for beers at 10 o'clock at night. Okay, well, I can hold my own for a little while, but about 1 or 2 in the morning, it's going to be, Derek, I got to go home. I got to go to bed. Yeah, you'll just be getting warmed up. Okay, so here comes this little bit of a rally now that we were anticipating. We're getting oh, doggone it. They're not giving me a chance here to demonstrate any of this. Okay, I'm going to throw the order in, then I'm going to explain it. There we go. So the market obviously in a decline. Anytime you see a rally one way or the other, it doesn't really matter because this happens both ways. You can anticipate that when the market starts moving contrary to the previous rally, that it's actually going to be like a bull, in this case it will be a bull flag. That's why I was anticipating a little bit of a move higher. So I was waiting for either a first micro macro cross, or in this case we got the green bar sell that I almost let run away from me, and which of course is our counter trend signal. All right, so there's an opportunity at a quick little scalp. I fully expect this to go a little higher if you wanted to try to run that out with a runner as well. But that's something to keep in mind, you know, when you're looking at the market and you say, doggone it, you know, the thing made this huge move higher. Hopefully you weren't talking as much as I was and you were able to capture some of these signals to the downside. So you got a first micro cross, you got a macro pullback, you got another macro pullback, and then here comes the green bar sell. Well, yes, the green bar sell could be taken with trend, but as I just pointed out, after a big uptrend, we would be anticipating that maybe this is like a bull flag. So what we're looking for here, let me draw it out here. What we're looking at is big uptrend. There's going to be a reaction. And from that reaction, we anticipate that at least a little bit or an attempt to resume the trend is going to occur. Same thing, big downtrend, there's going to be a reaction. And we will at least anticipate that the downtrend will resume. Now, to be fair, sometimes it's very difficult to tell which way is which. But we did get, you know, the big uptrend. We didn't get a real resumption of the trend, did we? We had this nice little sideways or downward channel, descending channel. Then we got the breakout. And so, yeah, why not? Why wouldn't we buy it? We're expecting the market to try to recover the uptrend. And there we go, we at least got our scalp target. Now, of course, we're in this scenario here, where we've got the big move down, or the bigger move down, and there's a very good chance that this current leg of the market may develop into a bear flag, and the sellers are going to try to knock it down again. I know sometimes it can get very confusing, but if you step back for a little bit and just kind of take a look at what the market's doing, especially when it's in these tight little channel type things, it becomes a little bit easier to see. So we have an upward channel followed by a downward channel followed by yet another tight little upward channel. Now, a lot of times when we get these channel type things going on, the market may end up in a in a sideways trading range. That's another thing to bear in mind. Okay, and now we're getting a first micro-macro cross, which of course you can attempt, especially since we're near the bottom here. But remember what I just said, this may end up being a bear flag and the bottom may fall out of this market. In which case, if we're going to take this first micro-macro cross, it's advisable to try to risk it down to here. It's not a very, well, it is a first micro-macro cross. It's a high probability signal, all those things going for it, but it's against the most recent part of the trend. Oh, good. They didn't even trigger me. Now we're into a macro pullback, and we've got the same kind of thing going on. So macro pullback, and if we're going to take it, we're going to expect a bounce. We're going to need to cover down there. And see, now they're starting to drift, which suggests maybe that this is the bear flag portion. And now the market is going to try to head lower. Now we haven't really seen a retest yet of the high and the failure. So if you wanted to try to get in there and try to scalp out for a little macro pullback, maybe dial down your risk, maybe just go in for a onesie. Now it's into yellow bars, so I can safely cancel that order. No longer be tempted. Jim says Russell is lagging the DAX. The bank index and the transports are all acting the same. It's a real waffling sort of day today. All right, speaking of the rule of three, hey, do you guys see something here that might be of interest? 1, 2, 3 signals. Tested the extreme. We might even get a second push on this one. So the market drifting a little away from the signal. You could even enter below the low of this bar, which would place your entry around 42.92. That would perhaps be a safer entry. But we're in sync with the ATR. We're producing a red bar buy signal here on the Raptor, which of course we can take with trend or we can fade it. We can take it below the low. Maybe I'll take this one at 42.92. Just take it below that swing, cover above there. If this one engages, I'll probably nix the profit target and see if we can't run this one down a little bit. Derek says, typical U.S. markets. Yeah, they're kind of chopping around a little bit today, that's for sure. All right, so it looks like we're going to get the failure here of the red bar buy signal. So I'm going to cancel my profit targets and my break-even trigger. You could set a profit target here at this little swing low, which is reasonable. Where is our profit target? Oh, see, we're sitting right on the median line here on the, oops. sitting right on the median line on our support and resistance suite. Took a little bounce here off of the primary resistance. Came back to the median line. Next stop, 42.80, 42.81, which would put us near the low of the morning, I believe. So we won't be greedy. Let's see. I'll try to get out 42.82. Let's see if we can work the market down to there. Come on. There we go. So now we're struggling with this little bit of a low here, producing a first micro macro cross. So we've got the warning dot. Was that one in sync? I guess you could have considered this a first micro macro cross signal. I don't like to see the signal bar be the one that comes into sync. I much prefer to see the warning dot, the triangle, hash mark, everything be that signal where it comes into sync with the trend lines and whatnot. This is going to be huge support down here, this 42.89, 42.90 area. That's very influential. We really need to see the market break through there. Oh, nicely done, Jim. Jim says, gotta go, Eric. I'm done for today. Gotta go buy some subway tile for the kitchen backsplash. Well, that sounds like fun, too. Up 160 ticks. Well done, Jim. Nice way to end the week. Have yourself a nice weekend. We'll see you Monday. Yes, I have a honey-do list around the house here today as well. Got a little painting to do. Got to get some of, I'm a little bit behind getting our plants out this year, so that'll be on the list also. Beautiful day here in the Pacific Northwest. All right, so here we go. Let's see how they react to this 42.90, 42.89 area. Come on. Yeah, Derek says it's a blistering cold 79 in Arizona today. Actually, our weather is almost the same. I think ours is going to be about 75, 76 on the Fahrenheit scale today. It's always funny, well, funny, when you go to, when you're from the northern climate and you go somewhere south like Arizona or Mexico, and you're walking around in shorts and you're seeing people in hoodies and jackets and all bundled up, but it's all relative. My dad was a carpenter, and the crew he was framing with when he was a young man in central Alberta, they would be framing in the winter, and it would be well below freezing, and one of the fellows on his crew was an Eskimo, and he'd show up for work in a t-shirt. He would think nothing of it. Well, Derek, I'm jealous. Derek says his new boat is being delivered today, a 42-foot Sea Ray, and his wife has on coat and pants, and it's going to be near 80 degrees. Yeah, it's all what you're used to. All right, I think this is probably a good time. I'm going to chicken out. I'm going to take my trade to break even, and I'm going to hold it there for a minute. You know, you can always let your pocketbook be your guide. We've got near $100 in open profit, which is pretty darn good for a scalp trade to pick up that kind of profit. But I'm gonna hold out here at break even and see if we can't sneak this a little bit lower. Come on, get down there now. I got a couple of comedians in the room here this morning. Derek says if it's below 89, Angela, his wife, freezes. Yeah, I know some people like that as well. It's like, oh my gosh, how can you guys stand it so hot? I spoke, one of our members is from South Africa, and I was talking to her via Skype one day. We had a coaching session, and I asked her what the weather was like in South Africa, and she says, it's freezing here today. It's 20 degrees, which on Celsius scale is like 70. And she says, it's freezing here today. I got the heaters going, and I've got my sweaters on and my long pants. And I'm laughing because, of course, 20 degrees is a nice spring day. I'm running around in shorts and a t-shirt. In fact, here, if the weather starts to hit 25 degrees, which would be mid-70s, everybody's air conditioning is on. Well, okay, maybe not quite that bad. Yeah, Tony says, we're not allowed to say Eskimo. I know. Funny thing is, I don't think the Eskimos mind being called Eskimos. Oh, I suppose some of them do. There's always a few people who find a reason to take offense at something or another. All right, here we go. We're getting warmer. Big push lower by the bears. Come on, don't stop now. Obviously we're going to see some sort of reaction as we get down near the low of the day. I'm going to sneak in here and get a more aggressive stop going. There we go. I'm not going to let that profit disappear. In fact, now I'm really going to put the squeeze on. There we go. That's it. You got one bar. One bar to sort it out. Okay, that's fine. So we hit our profit objective here on our little scalp, air quotes when I say scalp, because that was more of a swing trade. We hit our profit objective here on our rule of 3 signal with the eagle heading lower. So even though I'm a little bit late to the dance, still got some quality signals. Nice cloud crossover here on the Raptor as well. And you can see with the Raptor, we had a very prolonged test of the extreme. The market comes back. Nice little cloud crossover. great little progression lower. And you can be sure that we had a comparable signal on the Falcon. We'll go take a look at that. And right here, trend change signal on the Falcon. Trend change signal back here. Depending how you managed this trade, you may have been able to ride out this little swing. Some days it just pays to be more patient with your stops. Oh, glad to hear it, Derek. Derek says, by the way, loved your currency update last night. It was a cool midweek update. Well, thank you. He says he always looks forward to the Sunday emails. Well, I'm glad to hear it. Thanks for the positive feedback. I appreciate that. Okay, here's soybeans about to tag our break-even trigger. We can start to bring in our stops somewhat. Or, again, there's nothing wrong with bagging the $100 that we have in open profit. But here too, I may try to let it run out. With soybeans, it's one of these markets that I will extend the profit objective a little bit, just because they do tend to trend so well. It seems once they pick a direction for the day, okay, but now the buyers are starting to dig in again as we get back toward the low of the morning, which is right down there. And I think we may see a trading range develop from here. Of course, if the sellers take it down below the low, we can look for one of these break, retest type scenarios. I don't think I'd necessarily take it on the initial break because the chances are pretty strong that the buyers are going to push it back. But the big question is, will it hold? Will the breakout hold? Or will the pushback end up going well back into the channel? Maybe even to the top end of the channel. That's why we wait for the retest. Tony says, I was raised in Hawaii. Good for you, man. What a beautiful place. We got sent home because we did not have heated buildings. It was 59 when they sent us home. So if the temperature dipped to 59, all right, kids, go home. It's too cold. Or if you're working, go home. It's too cold. That's funny. I guess nobody in Hawaii has a jacket. We blew it out early in Hawaii. I haven't been to Hawaii for a long time. I really want to go back. But, and there's nothing going on, so I'll just share my little story with you. We went to Hawaii 3 times in a row, and I mean in 1 year. In fact, I think I was like 25 or 26 years old at the time. The third time going over, I got stopped by U.S. Customs. They pulled me aside into one of these little rooms and they were quizzing me because I'm sure they thought I was going to try to uh, immigrate to the U.S. illegally, or I was running drugs, or who knows what they were thinking. I thought it was really quite interesting because if you know me, I'm very straight-laced. Like, stuff like that never happens to me. So I thought it was the coolest thing that these people would actually consider me suspicious. But yeah, we visited all the islands. We just fell totally in love with Hawaii. And we got to visit all the islands, or at least all the islands that they'll allow white people on. And we were fortunate enough to visit Lanai before it became a little bit more commercialized. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with all the Hawaiian islands, Lanai is pretty much a Dole pineapple plantation. And there was a little hunting lodge on there, and hunting lodge is an overstatement. It actually looked more like the Walton's house, inside and outside. You had a bed, you had a nightstand and a lamp, and a shared washroom. But what a beautiful island! What a beautiful place! It had a beautiful half moon bay, which was probably a half a mile long, and the kids would play on one side of the bay, and we were on the other. And there was nobody there, literally nobody there. The water was like bath water. But the last I heard, 2 6-star hotels were built on that beach. So I'm afraid I would be a little bit disappointed when I went back. Probably couldn't even afford a drink at those hotels. Never mind hang out on the beach. Mandalay Bay. Yep, that's right, Tony. Mandalay Bay is a beautiful spot. I took a lot of pictures. I actually had paid an artist to paint a picture of it. I loved it so much there. And on Maui, I remember we went to Longy's restaurant. And if you're ever in Maui, I think Longy's is still around, although I think it's changed a little bit. And what was kind of cool is it was very upscale. Well, remember this was kind of the 80s. It had the big black and white checker floor, and the place was just hopping. And we sat down, and we had this little table in the aisle because it was so busy. And a fellow pulls up a chair and he says, "Do you mind if I sit with you?" No, okay. Well, it turns out he was our waiter. And he said, what do you feel like eating?" And I said, "Well, what's on the menu?" And he says, "Well, we don't have a menu. We'll make you whatever you want," which I thought was incredible. And they did. The only thing you need to remember is that if you order something, you're going to get a platter of food. So after our second visit, we remembered that we had to start ordering half orders. My wife is fond of green beans, so we ordered green beans as a side. Well, we got a platter. We could have fed 6 people for all the green beans that we had. Oh, I didn't know that. Tony says Kenny Rogers and Murdoch own it now. I'm assuming you're referring to the Longy's restaurant. Well, shoot, that's all the more reason to go back and visit. Say hi to Kenny. No, no, Derek, I wasn't running around naked at Mandalay Bay. No, it was a beautiful spot. And the people were so friendly. I love small towns. I grew up in a small town. I live in a small town. And yeah, everybody was so nice. The lady met us at the airport, tiny, tiny little airport, flew in on a Cessna. And she picked us up in the car that was going to be our rental car, drove us to the hotel. She walked home. I tortured that poor little Nissan Sentra. Some of the roads I took it down, it certainly wasn't meant to drive down those roads, but I tell you, that car did not quit. What a car that was. My goodness. It did outperformed a 4x4, I think. All right, soybeans finally hit our profit objective. So I'm in and out with our soybean trade, although you could have tried to run it out a little bit higher. Let's see how much time. No, soybeans has still got a few hours on the clock. They may sneak a little higher still, but I'm just as happy to be out with the profit. So had I been focused more on trading today than talking and teaching, this would have been a 4-figure day, I think. The market, exceptional follow through right out of the open, big move up, good move back down, and now we're just kind of waffling again. Oh my gosh. Tony says, Kenny Rogers and Murdoch own Lanai. Wow, I didn't know that you could buy a whole island. Yeah, it's a beautiful spot. And like I said, got to visit all the islands. I'd be hard-pressed to pick a favorite. There's something nice about each of them. Very, very fond memories of Hawaii. If you've never been, you gotta go. There's really no other place like it. Wow. Tony says Kenny Rogers and Murdoch bought the entire island from Dole. What was kind of funny one morning is we went down to the restaurant. It was more like a dining hall in our lodge for breakfast. My poor wife tortured my wife tortured the poor cook ordering a soft-boiled egg. Oh my gosh, that poor guy, he had a hard time soft-boiling an egg. And we asked for pineapple, thinking, hey, we're on a pineapple plantation. We'll order pineapple. No, sorry, we don't have any. Really? Yeah, we don't have any. It's not the season. Oh, okay. Just thought we'd ask. And we were in Oahu, and I think it was at the top of the Hilton Hotel. We went for breakfast one morning, had a fantastic breakfast, beautiful restaurant overlooking Waikiki and Honolulu. And the coffee tasted especially good that morning. And so I called the waiter over and I said, this coffee is really good. What kind of coffee is it? Thinking, it's some sort of Kona blend or something like that. I'll pick up a bag. It was Folgers. And I said, Folgers, really? I never have a second cup at home. But it was good. I guess it was the atmosphere. All right. Let's see. Back to work now. The market's still drifting a little lower. Nice little trend change signal and hard edge bounce here on the Eagle. But things have slowed up a lot. I'm thinking, well, let's see. Crude oil kind of hopping back and forth here a little bit. I was going to say I might be looking for another buy on crude. Crude definitely strong-ish this morning. They started strong, and then now they've kind of hit the skids. We're a little bit sideways, even working a possible trend change signal. I would not get too crazy about shorting, I don't think, unless you took your profit around this 44.30 area. That would be probable. That I could see. But otherwise, they're having a little bit of a hard time here with crude. 'Crude. 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 ' If we come back now off this swing and produce a buy signal, maybe get above this little itty-bitty swing high, have the signal print around 44.75, 44.80, I might be inclined to go in there with another long order. All right, let's put that back on the shelf. So here we are now back to the low of the morning. If you're the type of trader who's inclined to buy trading ranges, this would be a viable buy. Here, we don't do this very often. There's not much else going on. You may ask, how do you do this? Here, why don't we try it here on the Eagle? So what you essentially end up doing is you're identifying the trading range. If the market is going to range sideways, you're going to get sellers who start to sell the top third. You're going to get buyers who start to buy the bottom third. Because you've got the buyers, there's buyers here. The market started the day with a very strong rally. So the buyers, those traders who are still bullish, are going to say, well, why should I buy up here when I can buy down here? So we'll throw in a buy limit order just below the low of this bar. If the market drifts a little bit lower, we'll look to buy in. And usually what you do if you anticipate that the market's in a trading range, don't get greedy, right? You're just looking perhaps for a scalp target, get your 50, get your $100 and get out. Don't try to run the market all the way back up here into this, to the high of the day, or even into the top third. Probably at the most, I would be anticipating a move back here to the middle, maybe around 42.95. All right, so now we ended up getting filled on our order. And right there is kind of the low of the morning. And let's see, where are the... kind of keep an eye here on your... if you don't have a profit target in play, kind of keep an eye on your open profit. And if, like I say, we're just really looking to scalp or maybe get $100 out of the trade. Oh, it just flashed me my scalp target. There it is. So I'll take it. It's a fairly probable trade if you do it that way. If you do it with the intention of trying to get the market way, way up here, might not work out so well. Not saying it won't go up here, just that if you think the market's in the sideways range, just take what the market gives you. Don't be greedy. If you can get a scalp target out of it, if you can even get $100 out of the trade, just take the money. Say thank you very much and wait for the next signal. In fact, it looks like we're also getting a little bit of a channel going on here in the Eagle. I suppose you could run it something like this. So if this channel's going to hold true, well then it's reasonable to anticipate a move back up here to, say, the 42.90 area. Just kind of eyeballing how the market might drift. And at that time, we could be back into the hard edge, 42.90, 42.91. We don't usually focus on those types of things in the trade room because normally we're looking for with trend trades rather than counter trend trades. Okay, so here we are now with the Raptor. We're trading through the bottom end of today's range. And, you know, we know there's buyers down here because this is where the market started the day. Started the day with a strong rally. And buyers have been waiting for the last hour, hour and a half to try to buy in here again. But I think the bears are going to take control of the market here. Okay, still looking at the breakout, looking for the retest. All right, a little itty bitty retest, nothing to get too excited about just yet. If you're a seller, I mean. they're still kind of creeping along here. Not quite what I was looking for on the breakout side. In fact, if the market comes back here and produces a buy signal, it could be a soft edge buy and or move back here to the 42.90 area, perhaps even higher still. So like I say, if you're inclined to trade ranges like we were looking at before, you could just try to buy in here and hopefully pick up a few dollars as the market tries to retreat a little bit higher. Yeah, see you, Derek. Have fun on the boat, man. That sounds like a beauty. I think we're going to be closing up the room here in a couple of minutes anyways. There's not too much going on. If you're going to hang out and trade or try to trade the afternoon session, like I said, I think we are going to be range bound here. We're going to see a little bit of a hiccup higher. It's entirely possible that the bottom will fall out of the market, but the buyers seem to be stepping in. So if we break there, we're going to have a problem. Oops, wrong button. If we break there, we're going to have a problem when we get back down here to the 42.70, 42.71, 72 area. So we're not out of the woods yet. But again, a little bit of a bounce higher, a little scalp, maybe, $100. Definitely in the cards, as I think a retracement to the hard edge is very probable. And that's, I think, where we're going to button up the room today. Have yourselves a wonderful weekend, folks. I hope to see you again Monday morning. And bright and early, we'll do it all over again. Have yourselves a great weekend. Bye for now.